Good afternoon, everyone. It's the fact that I'm right almost at the end. I'm tempted to just say I agree with everything said, and it's almost everything in my story here. But thank you for this opportunity. I crushed the word imaging there. I didn't even know that Florence will be still around, but Florence decided to change the whole organization to say we don't want this word imaging anymore. But the more I work around nowadays with farmers, I'm starting to find farmers that are maybe real imaging. So these are guys who are rich, who wants to do cattle and have no information about farming, or some extremes that I've come across is people who import embryos from Australia, and they go and sit at Embryo Plus, and the guy then goes around, is looking for a farm, or those who did segregate. So I came like 3 farmers who wanted to farm Wagyu, who went that route of saying they go and organize, and when they are there, they are told, no, talk to these breeders, they are already in the country. So, but when you look at them, they are really imaging in all aspects of it, of saying they are new farmers. But for many years, I always like to use the word low-income farmers. So it's like, you can imagine when you are farming something that is as expensive as in cattle, how complicated it becomes to actually farm cattle. So when Yapi contacted me and we talked about this, I struggled really to close my talk into one thing, but I thought maybe I just reflect on myself, because if I look at that time in 1994, 95, that's when I had just completed a degree, and I was working, I think, in the Republic of Venda then, just before April 27, and then moved to the University of Limpopo, stayed there for 7 months, and then in February 95, I was here with Prof. Erasmus, and I was studying animal breeding. So I used to hang around with Start Book, the former Start Book before Yapi and them were ARC. So that sort of reflection of saying, maybe with those choices of saying I want to study animal breeding, and what were I thinking of in terms of what are the coming futures? What are the futures that we have to deal with? So there's one article I like a lot about, the futures, and it also helps me look at South Africa and how we have moved or not moved. If you look at in 1994, 95, I don't know, I know Norman came to youths also immediately after I left, I think. But there was that movement of people positioning themselves and saying, what will I be doing for the rest of my life? So almost 30 years down the line, I'm back at, that's why I was so quick to respond to Yapi, because I don't think I've ever interacted with that book for a long time. So the issue is that if we look at where we are today, could we have thought of it that time and said this will be our preferred future this time of the year? So one thing maybe I have to declare that over the years I sort of drifted away from animal breeding. So my interest really is looked at systems that are at play in a situation. So and that's what I will focus on. So one of the analyses that were done was that, okay, from these preferred futures, could you have done something? If you remember, I showed 94 to 2024, but that I also put 2054. If we're sitting now and futuring what is the desired future by 2054, what are the issues that we need to deal with? So, but then when we, I think 94, 95, I think most of the people will talk about that. Most cattle farmers are driven to cattle farming. The imaging farmers are driven to cattle farming because of culture. And And once people say that they don't have a plan of what do we do with a person who is in a business, but because he was there for cultural reason, culture drove him there. And when a person is in that state, it's very visible. The animal, he doesn't care about profitability. He doesn't care about little things. So as a business person, it means over time, he's likely to fall out because it's very expensive to keep pets called cattle. Or you either neglect them completely, and then they become less productive, which is what we see with our head. I didn't want to, we have one of the most sweating slides that we use where we put like what is the reproductive rate for the emerging farmer, for the commercial and what. So those numbers there, they tell that people don't care about what are the animals doing and they don't put any effort. So from our side, the interest was how do you drive a person who came into business driven by cultural motives, but convert himself into entrepreneur who worries about the profitability of that. And that should be something that we forgot about because that's our situation. Our client is somebody we believe is there driven by culture, because I want to look good. I'm a guy with cattle. I used to own cattle. And it was even though there were 11 in a communal village. When I tell people I have cattle, they were just happy. Yeah, this guy, you feel good that, yes, I'm in cattle business. Yeah, so the other issue, I like the word resilience because I've used it somewhere in my studies over the years. And what I've picked up, I'm going to redefine it, but I found out that to build resilience it's very critical. And I think if you look at how countries develop over the years, I think Thabo Mbeki used to have one statement where he was saying, I think around 94, 95, he was saying, with these sets of technologies and everything, we should be able to turn our country around in less than 30 years, something like that. And he will mention that the British, it took them maybe 1,000 years. The tigers of Singapore and Malaysia didn't take them that long. But because of what we have in terms of technologies and the time at which we were going into this post-94 era, you will think we will be able to do that. So the question is, could we have been able to build that resilience or work towards that? And how do individuals do that? How do you build resilience as a human being? How do you build resilience as a family or as a community or as a country? China, maybe one-child policy helped them. Maybe those are the things to do. But how do we build that? And then how do we then design interventions that we are able to do that? Or is it possible? So I've got just one slide that I'll spend a lot of time on it, which I believe is the philosophy that over the years, I believe things that we're dealing with within the emerging sector, or what I call the low-income sector, is that it's all about access to forms of capital. The classic economical capitals of, human capital, knowledge, finance. I'll go deeper into those. But the issue is the shock of those, the systems that keeps on shocking them and stress them so that they don't allow your enterprise or your business to stay where it's supposed to be. And also look at how stable are they in terms of how they are supplied or they are provided as support. So that's important. So that's a system in which we operate in, and it's very important for the stability of the system to build some resilience. And this sort of like more explanation of a system. So there's a system, somebody's livelihood or business. He has got social access, finance, physical, natural, and always there's something that comes in and disturbs it. It could be climate, it could be economic wars, Ukraine, Russia war. It could be, I said climate, global warming, extremes, diseases. So those systems are there that now and then they get challenged. And the issue is that as an individual, you have to put in some effort, your human agency, to fight those. But also in enterprises, the same thing. And usually you draw from those that are there. So one model that I believe a system at play that we need to, when we look at systems, when we look at the challenges we have in the sector, we should understand them in this context, because I think it's a practical way to look at it. Earlier I had people talking about the skills of extension officers. So if I put the imaging sector in the middle here, I said the word culture as a bad thing earlier, but culture keeps people in unprofitable sectors. I don't know whether you know about the hobby farming in America that saved the cow-calf operations, because people who just love to be in cattle were there. And when there was a shortage of winners, then they supplied the winners. But so it's a good thing that you may have that in your system, where a person is in there because he likes it and is committed. Yeah. So I just wanted to fill up what do I define all of those things. But the story here is that all these things are there. If you are farming and your animals need money or need the vet, but you don't have access to finance, then you won't bring the vet, or you won't buy the medication that you need to keep your animal in a healthy state. If you have issues of water, there's drought, there's something wrong with or grass bend, so all these things are there, but there are some that are, if you don't ensure that you are balancing all these things, you will always be in trouble as a business. One of the unusual capital that I put there is called a psychological capital, because this talks to you as an individual and how well you are prepared to put in a fight to keep your enterprise going. And this I say because I always say stud farmers don't lose animals during drought, but there are some people who lose cattle almost every year between June and August or September, because there's no food for their animals. And if you look at that, that's the human person, the person in between, who's not putting an effort to make sure his animals will have enough to eat throughout to keep them productive and in a productive state. So this is the model that we are saying. I think from my side is something that every time I'm involved in a project and I'll go through a list of case studies, I'm looking at, is there enough supply of this? This could come from government, from industry, from suppliers, but the issue is to look at the system and say, is this all in place for this enterprise to keep going? And this should apply actually to every enterprise, not necessarily the livestock imaging sector. So I have a list of some few case studies that are projects that we have been involved in, and I wanted to introduce the way the policy briefs there. I heard Yapi saying, oh, bring us the extension officer, as that book will train them. And one of the issues that you guys, I think you're in an environment where you wish you can inform a policy maker. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? And I'm raising my hands. If you have a policy brief that you want to do, drop it to us. I'm government here. So drop it to us and then make sure that you follow up on that, because policy is as important as a lot of other things, technology, and there's always a gap between policymakers and scientists. So if you don't learn how do I draft a policy brief, is something very short, half a page, that switches on somebody who can talk about it in some big meeting, and then one day it becomes a program. So I put KYD there because I think most of you will know about KYD. KYD, there was a policy brief. I think Yapi was part of those people who drafted it, and then it became a program. It has been there. 2007, when the schemes were declared, it was also declared as such. But in there were a lot of other projects, like the beef profit partnerships, the one that it talks about continuous improvement innovation. It's worded in there. It's in the brief, it's in the program. And sadly, every time I see people presenting KYD, I'm always asking, where is my CI&I component? Because I'm sure it's ignored, but in the actual declaration, it's there. Because it was there to support the human part of the scheme in an animal recording and improvement scheme. So I just wanted to put there. But there are a lot of other programs that I think talks to a lot of things that we do. So that project, when I was looking in my system of supporting a sector, I see about 6 of those capitals that you solve by that part of the project. By this, that 6 is talking to my previous diagram and what is there in that project. It addresses knowledge, it addresses access to resources, stewardship, a lot of things that you do when you are involved in that project. We also have a lot of government programs that maybe you may not be aware, where we support farmers with grants things. We nickname them, one is called Ilimalitim. In there we buy a lot of bulls. Sometimes they say registered, sometimes not registered. So it solves the gene flow that Norman was talking about. It has been there for some time. We keep on buying bulls. So it means some genetics flows down there, but we have never maybe followed it up to find it, how well are they doing. But it facilitates that gene flow from the expensive setup where if a farmer was going out to buy himself, he will not be able to afford that gene flow. And then there's a bigger blended schemes part that we have been implementing. And I think the commercial banks, we've been negotiating them for about 4 years. Blended funding is when you give somebody a loan and a grant. But if he doesn't qualify for a loan, he doesn't get a grant. So we have been upsized, almost signing, I'm sure. But we've been talking to the banks for almost 3 years now, hoping they'll also open up because it's easier to work with your banker, where people have been struggling with land bank for a long time. So it's one of those opportunities. When they are there, if a stag farmer is farming and he wants to buy a bull, he can come and buy a bull and take a loan of 50%, and then another 50% comes with the grant. It's one of the schemes that we've been implementing for the past, I think 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 years, around 2018. So, and we had the blended funding. I don't know whether you know that Cernic did a very successful, yeah, I'm almost 2 slides, I'm done. So I was missing you here, sorry, so you owe me 2 minutes. So these are some of the projects that we think we have done that over time that addresses some of the smallholder farmers. And I keep on dropping PB. Earlier, Prof. Willems was talking about the tough meat. We have done a policy brief several times within the other project to say, can we relook at this thing? Because I think it's affecting a lot of things. We also have a traceability system. In terms of the design is done. We're implementing it in the FMD zone. What is missing is legislation. We don't have the legislations to which one. We can't force somebody. So maybe we have to work on the market system. What is, yeah. But yeah, so I think from my side, I think we have a lot of things that are ready. We just need to upscale them. We don't have to be thinking of planning new projects or, yeah, we can improve in what we have, but I think we are in a stage where most of the things are ready to be implemented. And if the projects are good, that's my appeal. Please, if you are implementing a project, there's no way of a government to know it unless you give us a policy brief on that. And I think that's why the BGP has been funded again. When I worked for the ARC, I worked out I was funded over 164 million in my profession when I worked for the ARC. So, and because it was type of the things that talks to government things and trying to hear who needs what, and most of them were unsolicited type of funding. So funding can be there, but I think there's a lot of good things that are leaking out of the system because we don't have a process of passing it over to government. Yeah, and then in conclusion, I think we need to not look at one little thing. We must know that we are operating. Most of our problems are systems problems. So that's why partnership and checking who is doing what. Like if I know LDS uses remis to support their farmers on the land reform farms. So if Sadbook wants to be part of that, they can call to RMIS and said, can you consider us? We can help you with this part. So the systems are there in place. Yeah, thank you.